Let's go through part three of the series on being stuck inside hypnosis sessions. So, if you haven't watched part one and two, definitely check that out, especially part one, because it definitely has to start with that. And so, if you're here, welcome. You can definitely watch this and then implement what happens here as well as the other ones to ensure that the next time you go into your hypnosis sessions, you are confident. And even if you wobble a little bit, you won't let that affect the way you feel about yourself, which then leads into a better transformation for your clients. And so, part one, briefly, we talked about what you can do for yourself because that is key. You're doing something that is creating that pressure and stuckness within the session. And also, number two is about bringing your client back into the present moment. And part three today is going to be very, very similar to part two. In part two, I gave you an important question to ask. And today I'm going to also give you an important question to ask or a derivative of it, which is when you're like just feeling stuck, maybe you've gone through, say, half an hour into your session and it feels very overwhelming. You're like, oh, fuck, there are a lot of shit that came out here. If you use hypnotic questioning principles, then you do a really, really good job with exploring the root of the problem. And a lot of shit comes up and it can be quite overwhelming. You won't know where to go because there's so much going on, which is a good thing. And so if you are stuck in there, then definitely just pause and ask this question, which is, how do you feel now about the problem? That is it. How do you feel now about the problem? You can say it exactly like that, or you can be specific with regards to the presenting problem that your client came to you for. So, how do you feel now about going outside? Do you still feel anxious if they came to you with social anxiety? How do you feel now about eating when you're stressed out? If that's what they came to you for. Or you can simply just say, how do you feel now about the problem? What this does is it takes the same concept from part two, which is it brings the client again into the present moment. And specifically, it helps you to reassess to see if the problem still exists in the same way as before, or if things have started to shift. And then that way you'll find a direction that you can go towards instead of feeling stuck and overwhelmed. And so if a client says, you know, now that I think about going outside, I'm actually feeling very excited. So that is a great thing. It means that whatever you did a great job, and you can continue on with the testing, the hypnotic testing. But if for some reason your client still says, I'm a little bit better, but there's still some anxiety, especially when I go out in huge groups, like a group more than 20. Then you know that yes, things are moving, things are shifting. It is a good thing. They're making progress. But at the same time, you have this new, what we call it as a knot, a new thing that you get to help them unravel the problem with being in huge groups. And so then you can take your conversation and your questioning towards that section. It really is a good way, again, to bring you back into the present moment, to assess where your client is at, because sometimes you might think that there's nothing happening, but if you ask this question, the problem is actually resolved. I definitely fucked this up early on when I used this method where I just kept going and going and going and not reassessing where my client was at. Meanwhile, like an hour later, they actually had the problem resolved already and probably already resolved it 20 minutes before, but I kept on like going in circles. And so you want to remember this early on so that you can see if there's any progress, and if there is, proceed with the next part, which is the hypnotic testing. If you use the hypnotic questioning method, and or if there are still some knots within within your client's mind, then you can help them unravel it. It really just helps you to know which best direction to go in if it becomes overwhelming and stuck, and that way you don't feel like shit about yourself and confused, and instead you'll find the clarity and the direction, and then your clients transform much faster. So I hope that this three-part series helped. In the links will be in the rest the link for the rest of the trainings will be also here provided. And if you have any questions at all, let me know. Take action in this and let me know how that goes for you. And I will